There are Lincoln cents that collectors admire, and then there are Lincoln cents that have become legends. The 1909 S VDB is one of those coins. With only 484,000 struck before the famous VDB initials were removed, this tiny piece of copper became one of the most coveted coins in American numismatics. And the story behind it is every bit as fascinating as the rarity itself. Welcome to Eagle Numismatic. Subscribe, because today we're going back to 1909 to discover why this 1 cent coin became a cornerstone of American coin collecting. In 1909, the United States introduced something that had never appeared on a regular issue American circulating coin before: the portrait of a United States president. The president was Abraham Lincoln, and the timing was deliberate. The nation was preparing to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and President Theodore Roosevelt had supported the idea of placing Lincoln on a new coin. The artist chosen for the project was David Brenner, a talented sculptor whose work impressed Roosevelt. Brenner created the portrait that would become one of the most recognizable designs in American coinage. On the obverse, Lincoln faces right. On the reverse, 2 wheat ears framed the inscriptions 1 cent and United States of America, with the pluribus unum above them. But Brenner added something else. At the bottom of the reverse, between the wheat stalks, were his initials, VDB. Those 3 letters would soon create one of the most famous controversies in American numismatic history. The initials were not some mysterious mint code. VDB simply represented Victor David Brenner. The problem was that some critics considered the initials too prominent, arguing that the designer was receiving excessive recognition on a coin produced for the United States government. The controversy grew quickly, and the mint ultimately removed the initials from the design. That decision would transform an ordinary first-year coin into a legendary rarity. The Philadelphia Mint produced millions of 1909 cents carrying the VDB initials, but San Francisco produced only 484,000 1909 VDB cents before the initials disappeared from the dies. That number is the heart of this coin's story. The S tells us that the coin was struck at the San Francisco Mint. Philadelphia coins from this era carried no mint mark, while the S identifies San Francisco production. The 1909 S VDB is a 1 cent coin made from a traditional bronze alloy containing 95% copper, with the balance primarily tin and zinc. It weighs 3.11 grams, measures 19 millimeters across, and has a plain edge. And remember, this is not simply a coin with a low mintage. It is a coin whose low mintage was directly connected to a historic design change. Once the mint decided to eliminate VDB, production continued with a modified reverse. The 1909 S cent without VDB is itself a scarce and desirable coin, but the 1909 S VDB occupies a special position because it combines first-year status, a famous designer, a controversial design element, and an exceptionally low mintage. That combination is difficult to reproduce. For collectors, there is another important distinction. Not every 1909 S VDB is worth the same amount. A heavily circulated example may show significant wear, especially on Lincoln's hair and cheek and on the wheat stalks of the reverse. A coin graded fine, very fine, or extremely fine can be considerably more desirable than a heavily worn piece. Move into about uncirculated and mint state grades, and the difference can become dramatic. And then there is color. Copper coins are commonly classified as brown, red and brown, or red depending on how much original red coloration remains. A beautiful original red example in a high mint state grade can bring an enormous premium compared with an otherwise similar brown coin. That is why you should never hear someone say, a 1909 S VDB is worth exactly this much. There is no single value. Grade, color designation, surface quality, eye appeal, authenticity, certification, and current collector demand all matter. The market can also produce extraordinary results at the highest grades. As of January 2026, PCGS records a $170,800 heritage auctions result for a 1909 S VDB graded MS67 red. That is an elite condition example, not a realistic value for an ordinary circulated specimen. And that distinction is crucial. A coin can be famous without every example being extraordinarily valuable. The 1909 S VDB also deserves special attention because authentication is extremely important. Counterfeits and altered examples exist, including coins on which the VDB initials have been added or manipulated. NGC specifically warns collectors about altered and counterfeit 1909 S VDB cents and discusses diagnostic features used in authentication. So if you believe you have discovered one, don't rush to clean it, polish it, or scrape away anything that looks unusual. Handle the coin by its edges, keep it in a proper protective holder, and if its value could be significant, consider professional authentication and grading from a reputable third-party grading service. Certification can provide confidence that the coin is genuine and establish an independent grade, but certification alone does not guarantee a high price. The market still determines what collectors are willing to pay. There is also an interesting lesson hidden in the history of this coin. The VDB initials were removed from Lincoln cents after the controversy, and they did not return to the Lincoln cent until 1918, when they were placed in a much less conspicuous location on Lincoln's shoulder. So those three little letters created a fascinating chain reaction. An artist signs his work, the public objects, the mint changes the design, production of the original version stops, and more than a century later, collectors are still searching for that exact combination of date, mint mark, and initials. That's what makes the 1909 S VDB so compelling. It isn't valuable simply because it is old. It isn't famous simply because it is a Lincoln cent. Its importance comes from the story locked inside the coin. If you ever encounter a 1909 Lincoln cent, look closely at the reverse, check the date, look for the S mint mark, and then look at the bottom of the reverse, beneath the wheat stalks. If those three letters VDB are there, you may be looking at one of the most famous key dates in the entire Lincoln cent series. But don't stop at recognition. Look at the condition, look at the surfaces, look at the color, think about authenticity. And remember that the difference between an ordinary-looking coin and a truly exceptional collector piece can be enormous. Have you ever had the chance to hold a genuine 1909 S VDB? For generations of collectors, owning one has been a milestone, a coin that represents not only the beginning of the Lincoln cent series, but also the moment when a tiny designer's signature became part of American numismatic history. The 1909 S VDB may be small enough to disappear between your fingers, but its place in American coin collecting is anything but small. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson this coin teaches us. Sometimes the most important stories in history are found in the smallest objects. Thanks for watching Eagle Numismatic. If you enjoyed this journey into one of America's most famous coins, subscribe and stay with us for more true stories, rare varieties, historic coins, and the details that collectors should never overlook.